Okay, bet.
Okay. All right.
Welcome. So, first episode. Welcome to Stemming the Gap. My name is Winston Van, and
My name is Gavin Minot.
I'm happy for you guys listening out there, whether you're doing some homework or actually watching this video. Watch two teenagers talk about minorities in STEM.
Yep.
It's a great way to spend your Sunday afternoon, which we're recording at Sunday, right?
Yep.
And generally speaking, this whole podcast is, like I said before, it's about minorities in STEM. What we're trying to do is, like the name suggests, stemming the gap is eliminating the gap between the majority and the minority within STEM fields. So
Right.
what we've noticed based on statistics is that we see majority, which is white people in America,
Right.
tend to have more STEM jobs or be, in the STEM field rather than like per se an African American or a Pacific Islander.
Yeah.
And but before we get into all that statistic goodness, Gavin, why don't you lead us off like how we started the podcast and how this idea like generated in your head?
Yeah. So basically, me personally, Gavin Minot, I was the first one to come up with this idea of even having a podcast on STEM and like how it applies to minorities. My original name was Bio for Black, and I was planning to do a solo podcast. I had the whole thing, not fully planned out, but one day at school, I don't know if you remember, but I told.
Weren't we walking to like AP Euro?
Yeah, we were walking to AP Euro, and I remember talking to you about it. He was like, "I want to get on this podcast." Like he was on his knees
I was
begging.
adamant about this.
He was
yes, dude.
getting on this podcast. He was like all about the project and everything.
I didn't know if you guys know, but this technically doubles as our college passing project.
Yeah.
Which is pretty advanced because talking about STEM, I really do want to. Well, we obviously want to have careers in STEM.
Yeah.
I generally want to be a civil engineer, right? And
Yeah.
my original passion project for this was to create a cooking business, which just by the name, you can't. There's no aspect of engineering whatsoever. Like maybe like
invent something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or like maybe like create like a tool, make me flip eggs better or something. No, I don't serve eggs or anything, but there's no way. And Gavin brought it up. I was like, the light bulb in my head went off, and I was like, me and you, Gavin,
because we have to do this.
Yeah, the thing about me and Gavin is like I feel like we're the closest within our friend group.
Yes.
Well, we've been locked in since day one freshman year.
Yes,
you know
sir.
what I mean?
Speaking of freshman year, we go to high school at LHS, Lowell High School.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Latin Lyceum program.
Latin Lyceum program. It's accelerated program for those of you that don't know. Class of 2027. We're sophomores. Obviously after high school, we plan to go to college, study.
Yeah. Did you have an idea where to go?
For college?
Yeah. Come on, don't rep it out. Rep it out, MIT.
It's a big goal. And where would you like to go to college?
Not Harvard.
I wonder why.
Yeah. I want to go to generally. Like, I don't really like find myself like fitting for an IB because I have a bunch of family members who used to go to Ivies like Brown and Harvard and all that.
Yeah.
And they said it's very. Not only is it prestigious, it creates that sense of like, what's that word?
Like awe.
No, not like awe, but like you think you're better than everybody else.
That's
I feel
like
a sense of prestige, like in that.
Yeah, the prestige.
Yeah, and that gives you like, you feel, I went to Harvard, so I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I don't really roll with that, so I really want to go to somewhere like Tufts maybe, or like a Northeastern BU.
Yeah.
Somewhere close to home, but also far away from my parents.
I know, like we all want to, find that sort of independence.
Exactly.
And same thing with me. Like I also, want to go to college, high aspirations. I plan on majoring in biochemistry. What do you want to major in again? Is it
engineering? Yeah,
engineering, right?
Engineering.
So that's basically our post.
Wait, didn't you say you wanted to like minor in business? Because I we talked about it.
Yeah, minor in business. Because I think part of what I want to do as like a biochemist is to, obviously as a minority in the field, to make impactful work, have like my own independent research. Like obviously I might start off by working for someone, but I don't want to be working for someone my whole life.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I just want to be able to have the independence and maybe create my own business and make a little money out of it.
Yeah, I remember either your mom or my mom was talking about it, and like to minor in something. My mom, she said, "Oh, do finances or like accounting,
Yeah. So you have
just
that.
to get that, like ahead,
Yeah.
And plus, you're not doubling your workload at all. You're
Yeah.
actually like maybe like 1/4 of it will increase because you are minoring again, but
Yeah.
it's not going to be that bad because it
Yeah.
is not a main course
That's
again.
true. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's how it was, and generally speaking, social media wise,
Yeah.
let's talk about it. We are going to be launching an Instagram very soon.
Yes. Instagram very soon.
Yes.
Probably be like what?
Stemming gap dot
Stemming
underscore
dot
or
gap
something
or
like that.
something.
Something that it can be clickable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Search up Stemming the Gap.
You'll find it. Promise
You'll
you.
find it up soon.
You'll find our logo that Gavin Mana has made.
Yep. Make sure to follow us, guys.
Yes, sir.
Please, spread the word about the podcast, repost, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're, watching on YouTube, be sure if you're on the go, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that.
Yeah, I do really prefer like the idea of like the audio. Because like you could just listen to it. You could listen to the meaningful stuff that we have to say, and also be doing the dishes, cleaning your room,
Yeah, that's true.
homework,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
Yeah, no, a lot of people that love to listen to podcasts,
For
doing
sure.
the dishes and all that.
Yeah.
So if you want to listen to us while doing the dishes and you're watching this on YouTube, go over to Apple
Yes,
Podcasts.
sir. Yes, sir.
And if you want to see us in person, see who we are, what we look
Yeah.
like, and you're listening to Apple Podcasts, go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure to subscribe.
Works out both ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah, subscribe and like on YouTube. Have any video ideas and like suggestions that you want to make to us? Be sure to leave a comment. There are a lot of different topics in this. It's a really big field.
Yeah.
STEM and minorities, like there's so
what
many
does
things
STEM stands
to
for?
talk about.
What?
Science,
Technology, engineering, and math.
Broad field, guys.
I know.
Very broad field.
Fields. So as we are high school students, we can't really shoot episodes often,
Yeah.
and we do live relatively close to each other, but
Mhm.
it's just a matter of time. 'Cause
Yes.
Then again, we also have other extracurriculars. Like I
Yeah.
know you do tennis, and I run track
Yep.
and everything like that.
So that's why we'll be having videos every other Thursday, guys. So
Yeah.
every other Thursday when you're doing your dishes, be
Yes,
sure
sir.
to tune in.
Tune in.
Tune in.
Also, you guys will not just see our face. I know because generally speaking, like having two high school kids, talk about minorities and STEM can be boring.
Yeah.
It's really more of a lecture rather than like an actual like podcast.
Mhm.
So we would definitely have special guests on here. Like
Yeah.
I have a ton of connections regarding STEM and STEM for UMass Lowell, such as stuff from the U Teach program as well as the
Yeah.
I know a few professors from the civil engineering department that
Yeah.
can come through.
Yeah.
I know your dad is an engineer.
Yeah,
or
my dad,
architect.
architect. Yeah,
Sorry.
he has his own architecture company, Dream Collaborative
Yes, sir.
Development Real Estate Architecture Management. That's what it's called. So yeah, he knows a lot about. He's had a lot of different experiences. He's had some racial bias against him. Like we both know a lot of people that we can bring onto this podcast, teach us some lessons, also teach you guys some lessons. That's part of why we're doing this. It's inspire the outside world. So
the more the more you guys interact, the more it helps us. It also helps you with your entertainment. So
exactly,
you know what I mean?
definitely, yeah.
Let's get on to the juicy stuff now. Let's talk statistics. Sorry.
Yeah, statistics about what we've felt
What
in
we've
STEM.
done.
Yeah,
And our experiences as well. So
yeah,
I remember like the first time I've seen like a difference between like the races, because all my whole life like I've been around like relatively equal, like 50-50, right?
yeah.
It'd be 50-50 minorities, which is very common. I went to like a normal low day nursery, you know what I mean? But I think my first time encountering it was like an idea camp.
Mm-hmm.
So at that idea camp, you go through like various projects, and one day at the projects, we did like a marshmallow tower where we have to stack spaghetti and create the tallest tower. Yeah, those little like icebreakers, just to get. I set like 95% of them were white,
Yeah.
and two kids were the only Asian and one African American, and
Wow.
the other Asian was actually my brother.
Wow. And did you say like you've been to camps in like Greater Boston?
Yeah, Greater Boston, Lawrence.
Yeah.
I've been to ones in Lowell, even ones in like Long Beach.
Yeah.
And
So
I've been all over the country for idea camps, and like even like early college stuff.
Yeah, and it's
And
not like we're going to some like white place.
yeah,
Like
dude,
we're going
it's
to
Lowell High, dude. Majority of that school is like tends to be minorities. So
yeah, and you still have people in the camps in those places that are
exactly.
white, and it's
Yeah.
like that's part of what we want to analyze here. Like, why is
Yeah.
that happening? What is causing this like just drop off
Yeah.
in like
And how can we stop it? How can we prevent it? How can we get more minorities into STEM?
yeah.
And yeah, so also I wanted to add on, like, I remember this one time I went to a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like a standard, well, it's not necessarily STEM, but it's just a workshop for writing.
Yeah.
It was in Greater Lawrence.
Yep.
And which is primarily a Hispanic dominated community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whole lot of white people.
Wow.
Whole lot of white people.
It's just like it doesn't like comprehend.
Exactly,
like,
right.
How does that happen?
You know, you're in the Lawrence area, you will already like feel like the presence of a Hispanic, because I feel like okay, this sounds like from a very biased perspective, but you know, this whole everywhere it's like,
Yeah.
you know, there's English, but there's also Spanish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you're in a Hispanic dominated community, you should expect Hispanic people at a you know, an event like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like something like, you know, crazy thing. It was just like a normal writing workshop.
Yeah.
And
Like
all I saw were just like rich, privileged people.
yeah.
So
Definitely. I know. Like I've had a lot of similar experiences in
Yeah.
like seeing people. Especially, I think what I've observed in like universities, because like some people do is they might become like I don't know, like a minor engineer or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But they won't get to like be like a professor or like something like that. And
to
then
be
like
fair, like professor's really hard to get
yeah,
into. I
professor's
know.
really hard to get into, and it's what I was looking at is it's disproportionate like how many of these colleges have like just white professors.
Yeah.
Like I looked at
Yeah, for sure.
Harvard, Tufts, MIT,
Even UMass
like
Lowell, like even down here locally, like
yeah,
most of like the staff and professors and that, most of them
Yeah.
are like generally like white.
yeah,
You know?
and Lowell is like an Asian,
Yeah.
Hispanic, like community, and everybody that's in these like I guess higher level places, like it's
Yeah.
almost like it's closed
Yeah.
off.
And what's
And-
funny is that for the UMass Lowell was that I believe that like we represent like diversity in the melting pot so much.
Yeah.
Especially because I remember this one statistic. We was like, oh, we were the first high school, boys and girls high school in America to allow
Uh-huh.
African Americans and white people.
Oh,
Was that it or
I
was
it was co-ed.
co-ed? Oh yeah,
Yeah, it was
co-ed.
co-ed.
Sorry. So
Yeah,
wrong thing.
wrong
Don't worry about it.
statistic.
But
yeah,
you know what I
definitely.
mean?
Yeah, we have like a history of like integrating,
Yeah.
and then like it's just not there in like certain sectors and in STEM.
It's so apparent that we care about our diversity, but it's just not apparent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have a whole Cambodian town, but it's just where's that apparency like within like the college? You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
education wise.
And like caring about diversity, like I remember looking at the Dartmouth website
Yeah.
for like their staff and all
Yeah.
that. They had like a diversity page and like their staff, they had a diversity page. They had two people working there. They had a whole script about how like, you know, we're working to incorporate you know, diversity into our
You know what that reminds me
people
of?
and
It's like,
everything and like
oh, sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
that kind of reminds me of like I remember this one like saying, it's like, oh, I'm not racist because my gardener is Hispanic.
yeah,
You know what
and,
I mean? Like-
yeah, and that's basically what they were doing.
Yeah.
Like they were like had that little spiel, and then I clicked on the staff, white guy,
yeah.
white guy,
Mhm.
white guy, and I think there might have been like one Asian
Yeah.
dude, and then like there's just all white. It is like just there so they have something to point to, be like, you know, oh, I'm
We have
not
an Asian. We
racist.
have an Asian guy.
You know, we have an Asian guy. It's not even
Yeah.
an actual Asian
Yeah.
guy. Like it's just a weak looking page.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's really really poor.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But that's what we're working to fix to, for sure.
Exactly.
You know, this podcast isn't necessarily like, oh, we're actually gonna dive deeper. Obviously, we are gonna dive deeper and like more statistical wise and analytically, but it's
Yeah.
more about just outreach. You know,
yeah.
the main reason why a lot of minorities aren't in the STEM is not being able to learn, and there's no outreach for STEM.
Yeah.
Even though like there are definitely like organizations working towards it. I know that
Yeah.
the UN is trying to do something about that because they did something about one of the global crises was like not enough education in the world.
Really? And like they
Yeah,
did where? Oh, I know about
yeah,
that. That's
and
cool.
there was like many organizations like even in Japan like they're trying to do something else, but even then like it's not necessarily working.
Yeah.
Although like it is technically working
Yeah.
in their perspective in their field.
Hmm.
How is that affecting us? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. And that also ties into 4 core goals that we have for this
Yes, sir. Yes,
podcast.
sir.
One of which is, as we've been describing, make you guys aware of the disadvantages and disparities that affect minorities in STEM today. Like, there's been a lot of progress that's going, but there's like still so much
Yeah.
work to be done and so much for people to know about and be made aware of. So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to get into
Yeah.
that, but
Um.
like,
No, there's not really much to say about that. I mean,
yeah.
obviously make it work because that's the entire main point of like a podcast is
Hmm.
really just make everybody aware and get that outreach out there. Like I said before.
Right.
But one thing that like one statistic that I think was that we made on the itinerary
Uh-huh.
was, let me read it off real quick.
Yeah.
2021, underrepresented minorities made up 32% of the skilled technical workforce, but only 16 of that workforce in STEM occupations require at least a bachelor's degree. It's like that's cut in half.
Yeah, like
So
that's and then speaking of bachelor's degree, like a lot of times what'll happen is I think they might like, there will be somebody that goes to those camps and gets interested in STEM
yeah,
and then they go to college and they're like
they get blown out.
they
Yeah,
get
they
like,
get worn out.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what is this?
Yeah.
40% of black students that are in STEM majors drop out.
Yep.
Like, that's ridiculous. Like, nobody's staying there, and that's why you might see numbers that say, like, I don't know, we have this many people enrolled in our science program, but are they going to stay there? No, they're not. They're not going to get the degree.
Yeah.
I think that's something that contributes to how many people are in the workforce. They don't get the degree, they go in the workforce, and they end up going into maybe a skilled technical
Yeah.
workform like carpentry or
Yeah.
something like that.
But
So-
yeah, like I said before, I feel like we've talked about this before, but where we talked about how the like those jobs or like the quote unquote get rich scheme hacks,
Uh-huh.
how those like play into because I know a lot of people generally like they don't want to work as hard for something like that, like
Right.
because they don't want to. A lot of the kids nowadays, especially for the modern times, they don't
Mhm.
want to work a 9 to 5. They want to
Exactly.
just get the money and not have to work,
Right.
right? And like I said, like I feel like going back to history a little bit,
Uh-huh.
we did have I think it was like France or something that had a merit system. And I feel
Uh-huh.
like we have that in America.
Yeah.
I feel like the higher degree that you have, the amount is the job you're gonna get, right?
Uh-huh.
So let's take for example, like if you have a high school diploma, you're probably gonna get a janitor. I'm not saying you will. There's obviously like you can be a carpenter with a high
Yeah.
school diploma, but
But you're gonna get a high school diploma.
you're gonna get a
job.
high school diploma job.
Right.
And even though that might make you 100K, it's not something that uses your more like a labor job, right?
Exactly. And that's why because so many like it all starts like it's like a almost like I look at it as like a stage. Like
Exactly.
they start like you're there and then you're almost guided into like this spot where it's like college, no. Getting a degree, no. Like that's just not for you and they're gonna go into those fields, they're gonna get the high school diploma and get into like carpentry or something like that besides STEM.
Yeah, also because
And then-
it's just less work.
Yeah, it's less work. It's
Yeah.
way easier.
It's easier to just do like a trade school.
Exactly.
And that's why everybody's doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why a lot of the times when I was in middle school, like I went to a charter school,
Uh-huh.
and surprisingly enough, like my whole entire class 2023 was
Yeah.
a minority,
Yeah.
and most of them a lot of went to Vogue.
Yeah.
You
Went
know?
to the trade school
Yep.
because then, like I don't want to go to college, just want to do the trade school,
Mhm.
get the money then.
Yeah.
Way too hard, right? And a lot will happen. They'll grow up, they'll have kids, and they'll tell the kids, "I turned out fine, and I don't have, I don't have a STEM degree. I'll be fine. Just
Exactly.
do carpentry."
And-
Which there's nothing wrong with carpentry. Like go and do if you want to do carpentry, do that. But you're not like a lot of people aren't given the opportunity
Yeah.
to consider other things.
which creates this like, entire gap between the minority and the majority, which we're trying to
Exactly.
eliminate.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
That's part of
So
it.
another goal that we also have,
Hmm.
second goal, guys,
Yes.
is to talk about inspiring leaders and figures in STEM today,
Yeah.
and their experience as a minority.
Mhm.
Like I said before, this kind of, you know, relays off the idea of like the guest component
Having guests. Yeah.
of our talk show,
Mm.
and allows for another perspective on things.
Yeah, definitely. Makes a lot of
Like
yeah.
um, one example was like uh media outlets. Let's talk about that. Like
Uh-huh.
movies, entertainment
Yeah,
wise. I
like a lot
remember
of
like books are doing that, right?
yeah.
I feed people like write books about them, like
Mm.
being a minority in like a white community. That's been
Yeah.
played out. But what
And
about the STEM?
I
You know what I
know.
mean?
And I remember, I don't know if you've watched this movie or like read the books, Hidden
Oh
Figures.
yeah, I read the book and the
Yeah,
movie.
Hidden.
Nice.
It's like a really inspiring story of
Exactly.
how I think her name was Katherine Johnson, and there were two other,
Yeah, yeah,
one or
yeah.
two other ladies
I said, oh
who
no,
came
no,
up through the
Catherine
NASA.
Global. Was that? Oh
Catherine
no,
Global? What?
Catherine Global.
I don't know. Anyway, but
No,
it was,
cause
it was,
yeah,
yeah, it was
yeah, okay.
a really inspiring story of like how they came up through the system. And obviously we can't have them on the
Yeah.
podcast here, but we can have other people on our podcast and talk about those people, and how they've, because obviously we're talking about how they're disadvantaged and disparities, but we also want to encourage you guys and talk about how there are thousands that have paved the way for future generations to keep on coming and coming and coming.
For sure.
And that's something that's definitely needed to be celebrated. And Hidden Figures previously said, celebrated that. And
But
that's
it's also a
yeah.
good way like to like address it for sure.
Mhm.
You know, they're doing like that was only one movie.
Uh-huh.
Imagine if they made other movies and books.
I know. Like, imagine if there's a whole series of
Yeah,
like Hidden Figures,
yeah,
and it was like Hidden Figures in the story of George Washington
yeah,
Carver or something
yeah,
like that. Or they did it for modern people today, like some famous
yeah,
professor that's doing groundbreaking work right
yeah.
now, and like professors
Who's
like
that one dude? I forgot his name, but he was like an amazing scientist. He worked for NASA a little bit. You were,
which like right now or
I think
no,
so. He was on a podcast recently. I forgot his name.
oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy.
that
He's
guy.
he's doing
Oh,
extraordinary work. Especially,
imagine
if we got him on the show, like we could email him or something. Like,
that would get Neil deGrasse Tyson on the show. That'd be crazy. But yeah,
and
like,
actually geek out.
I know.
He's pretty cool. I watch him all the time. Like him and you know what Vsauce is?
Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
a science
Yeah.
YouTuber. They had
Yeah, I watch him all the time when I eat food and stuff. That's pretty cool.
nice, yeah. So like inspiring people like that. Like there's a lot of good stuff to talk about in this field.
Yeah.
So that's definitely want to talk
You
about.
know, there's a lot of the juicy and stuff that a lot of you guys are interested in.
And
Um,
that leads into our third goal, which, a lot of these goals connect, is to talk about inspiring and leading figures of the past that made it
ooh.
into today and what we have today and the different honorable people that we have today. And, I want to start off by talking about segregation
Yeah,
and
for sure.
those kind of disadvantages, not just segregation for black people, but also like
Colored people
I
in
remember
general.
colored people in general, Native Americans, and also Asians. Asians
Yeah.
got a lot of hate. Remember when they World War II in like Japan,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
a whole bunch
yeah.
of
Or
Japanese
the
people,
or even like the Nagasaki
yeah,
bomb.
because they were Asian, locked up.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of horrible things going back then.
And even before, like even in California, like even after World War II,
Yeah,
during the Great Depression, was Great Depression before or after World War II? Pretty
that was
sure it
before.
Yeah,
Before, yeah.
Even during the Great Depression, like I remember hearing stories about a lot of Chinese immigrants working in
Yeah.
the railroads,
Yeah.
and that's where we get, you know, like racial slurs from there. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah. So there were a lot of difficulties back then, and we want to talk about the people who, despite that difficulty, persevered and made a lasting impact. Like
For
imagine
sure.
how hard it must have been to get like
Even
just
like a small job.
like a
That gets
regular
paid too,
job,
you know?
yeah, like that gets paid a decent amount.
Yeah.
Like that was incredibly difficult. Forget becoming a scientist. Like that was out of the question. back then.
Regardless if it was a STEM field or not, it's extraordinary to
I
find
know.
like to find ways to like they carve their own path.
Exactly.
Even like I know recently there was like not recently, but this was generally like right like before or like kind of during the Vietnam War, like I know a lot of people like the Cambodian genocide, like Khmer Rouge.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people came here to Lowell
Yeah.
and pursued STEM majors,
Hmm.
which I think is
Nice.
very extraordinary.
Yeah, that's a lot. Imagine coming out of like a war
War,
torn, and
yeah,
yeah, the Khmer Rouge was rough. I
yeah,
remember reading a
yeah,
book about
exactly.
that. Like, imagine coming here and then like saying, "I want to be a scientist," something that's so hard. Like, it would have been hard to for them to get a job in the first place. Like, imagine that.
Well,
Like,
I think it's a journey to be already in America after a war, and
yeah,
you have to go through another journey.
I
It's
know.
like it's like it's like completing a chapter in your life, but you
I
want to
know.
reopen something else.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's like really admirable.
Exactly.
Like, that is something else. And like, I want to talk about a little anecdote here. I remember in 6th grade we did a wax museum project. This is how like I exposed to the guy I'm about to mention. But we had to pick somebody to like model and like know like their whole life story. And I remember picking George Washington
Oh,
Carver.
you mentioned him.
Yeah, I mentioned George Washington Carver, and like I remember researching him and like all about the peanuts and like how he
Peanuts.
came up.
Peanuts.
Yeah, George Washington Carver, that's the peanut guy.
Remind me again. What did he do
So
with
he
peanuts?
basically like created like a whole bunch of uses for peanuts and like how to incorporate them into agriculture and like save the soil and all that. So like I learned all about him. I was like amazed of like how he overcame so much to be able to go to college, get it like degree, and like this is like I'm pretty sure like late 1800s, early 1900s,
Yeah.
like segregation and like injustice like in its prime here, and this guy is going up to white farmers and telling them, do this, I've proven this scientifically, like
And it's right, and the fact that people, at first, obviously, it's gonna sound radical, right? Just because it's coming from some like, if you put in the shoes of like a white farmer, you'll understand like, you know, he's an African American, and you shouldn't trust him because of the
exactly, that was the
because of
cultural
this,
norm
yeah,
back
that
then,
was like yeah the societal norm back then,
exactly,
and for something and oh yeah to scientifically prove that is also not only that is that extraordinary, but the idea to like break all the barriers and break the walls
right,
and allowing them to like actually use his work
yeah.
to make agriculture better for the both America and the economy of America. You know,
Yeah.
it's really amazing.
I know, like there are a whole bunch of like people. Like I have a whole list here. Alice Ball, you know, she was. I remember watching a video about her. She was a chemist. In like again late 1800s, early 1900s. She was a woman. Like imagine like
Wow.
even like a white woman becoming a scientist. A black woman.
Exactly.
Like that is like probably like if you combine woman and minority, like it's like really hard to like get up the
Disaster.
social ladder. And she cured a disease.
Wow.
Like it's just really admirable. Like obviously like you know today the people today that are come up are really admirable, but like imagine back then with like how rough it was.
Didn't
Like
she
just
treat like leprosy or something like that?
yeah, it was leprosy. She
Yeah.
healed leprosy. She was a
Wow.
chemist, which is, you know, what I want to become. So
Yes, sir.
hope to be like Alice Ball, you know, like curing those
Maybe
diseases
you'll
and
like
everything.
find the thing for like find the cure for cancer.
Maybe a friend cure cancer. You never know, guys. So yeah,
There's also people like Mary Jackson, which I know was in the Hidden Figures movie.
yeah,
Daniel Hale Williams, which is a cardiologist who actually performed the first successful open heart surgery.
exactly.
And
Like
I know that's very difficult.
I know.
Take me through it.
Not let me take you through it. Like let me tell you.
Like, talk me about it.
So like
elaboration.
well, before this, obviously no one had ever done a open heart surgery. Like you just couldn't do it. Either like you die or
Die, just deal
you
with the
just die.
consequences.
Like you can't like I can't open your heart. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And or like they would have to give you medication or something like that. And this guy, like, not only are these guys, you know, becoming scientists or becoming engineers and doing good work, they're like being the first to do something,
Yeah.
like ahead of a white man who has tremendously more, like much more advantage at that time.
Yeah.
And becoming the first person to do a successful heart surgery,
And
or
that takes skill.
yeah,
That's not just some pity. Obviously, everything takes skill, but
yeah.
you know, it's not just some pity thing that one wrong move and your patient's dead.
Exactly. And like one wrong move, like these people if they made like a mistake, let's say in like their university, or like they made a mistake in general,
Yeah.
they'd be like a lot harsher
Yeah.
on them, because it's like, well, look
They
at that.
are a minority. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they can't do
We shouldn't have
anything.
trusted you,
We
you
shouldn't
know?
have trusted them, so now you're out. White guy will be like, yeah, I'll give it another chance or something like that, you know? So
I don't know. I kind of disagree with you on that. Give you
what do you mean,
another
like,
chance. But
no,
even
I'm
if
saying,
you are a white person, I
I mean,
think
like,
like you just killed somebody.
yeah, obviously not, but like, though, I feel like they'll be more lenient to you.
Yeah, I
Like,
feel you.
if
I
you,
feel you.
like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you're a minority, like, they'll be just like 10 times harsher on you, and they're just different expectations. Speaking of expectations, I remember my dad told me a story. We're, planning to have it. He's an architect. My dad's an architect.
Maybe like
Yeah,
sneak peek for the first
sneak
guest.
peek for the first guest. He told me a story about how when he didn't have his business yet. He was working at an architecture firm, I'm pretty sure, and he was hired by a client to do a certain project. And what they never met in person. It was always online. Like, he was emailing him like, these are the designs. Guy was really impressed by his work. Like, my dad was doing a great job for him, emailing him back and forth, and eventually got to the point where they needed to meet in person, because they hadn't met in person yet. They'd just been emailing. I don't know how long, year, month, maybe something like that, but they'd been talking back and forth. The guy was really impressed with the work. Let me meet you, talk with some things. And they meet up, and one of the first things that the guy says, he's like,
I didn't know you were black.
you knew what was coming. I know you were black, because there's an expectation. Like, it's almost as if he thought, like, there's no way someone that's black could do something that's this good work.
That just plays with the racial bias.
Exactly. Like, there's just a bias. There's an expectation that is being held. Like, and I'm gonna give this guy the benefit. I don't think he's an outright racist,
Yeah. But I think everybody, respectively, like,
yeah,
in no way, shape, or form am I saying that everybody is a racist. No.
right.
Or I believe that everybody, even including me and including you, we
Yeah.
all have our personal
All
preferences.
have our different.
And we all have our biases.
Yeah, we all have our exactly.
You know what I
like,
mean?
you can't, like, obviously not everybody's a racist, as you
Yeah.
said, but like, we all have these different underlying things. And so, like, we might, like, in my dad's story, you might be surprised, oh wow, this guy's doing great work, he's black. Maybe not something like that, or like you say
it's kind of
but you might think
in a way it was like a microaggression.
yeah, like, kinda, yeah. I mean, obviously, you don't want to say something like that, but all of us, I think, have like thought that sort of thing, where we're like, just a little bit like, oh, this person's Hispanic and they're doing this great thing, surprising or something like that, because there's just these things that have been in our head, these different biases.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah. Also, one thing I would like to address is all the people that we mentioned, including Gavin's dad, the great people that we mentioned. We are not trying to glorify them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Or like just because they're a minority and they did something cool thing, that does not mean that they're the best person in the world.
Right.
Because there are tons of white and European people who have done extraordinary things.
Like, we're not saying
Isaac
that black
Newton.
people are better than them.
They're
Like, that's
Isaac
not what we're saying.
Newton, Albert Einstein, just to name a few. Like, they've done plenty of things. They've laid the foundation for modern day math.
And for these minorities to come through and do even more work.
Exactly.
And so, we're not glorifying that. We're just basically shedding light on those that might be hidden. Bless you.
Thank you.
And not as made aware as like Isaac Newton or something, and bringing them up to the status that other scientists of their caliber have been held at.
Exactly. And it just proves that, that there's no there's no superiority between any other minority. So there are a lot of white people can do as the same things, great things that black people can do, and black people can do the vice versa. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, everybody, no matter what minority you are, whether it's STEM, whether it's liberal arts, or whether it's downright carpeting, anybody can do some great things. I promise you that.
Anybody can do great things.
If you just put your mind to it, just like a tiny bit, and you really hone in and focus on your skills.
Yeah. Put your mind to it, guys.
Yeah, you'll be able to achieve great things.
Definitely. And also, just one thing before we go, guys, I just wanted to mention, I said we have 4 core goals.
What's the last one?
I said, well, the last one basically is
part 2.
To the previous, it's kind of part 2 of the third goal almost, I should say 3, but the previous conditions and disparities of the past that these inspiring people of the past had to go through, which I kind of, talked about a little bit. So that kind of ties in with the
Oh,
third
so
goal,
like
but
what
mainly
you talked about with like the segregation,
like segregation, all that, and
how taking into account like the past like situations or societal issues.
yeah, and seeing how like they were able to overcome that. Because like,
Mhm.
oh, this person did a great thing, but they had to walk a mile to go to the bathroom because everything was segregated,
Yeah.
or they couldn't go to this school because the headmaster was racist or something like that.
Like the things that they had to generally like endure to
Exactly.
make their, discoveries even more impactful than
Exactly.
they actually are.
Yeah, it's true. All
So
right. Well,
that's kind
I
of
think
the intro.
that's our introduction to our podcast, guys. Thank you for watching,
Yeah.
for listening.
I really am glad that, if people do listen to this, like I really am glad like people are listening in and actually taking into what we have to say, because I feel like even though that everybody has something great to say,
Yeah.
I feel like ours has a purpose that can
Yeah.
impact the world.
That can, yeah.
Yeah, imagine if more people, like not even minorities, more people in general gone to STEM.
I know that.
Like
Yeah, that's true.
imagine like technology. We
I
have
know.
AI right now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we would AI humans. Come on. You know what I mean? Like,
Hey.
and I'm not the smartest fella in the room, but
Oh no, don't say that about yourself. You're
oh,
smart.
okay, appreciate you.
But yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah.
Just this is the start of an amazing journey, and we thank you for that. Stemming the Gap podcast, Gavin,
Yeah.
Winston,
Yeah.
signing off.
Wait, before we truly sign off, do not guys think that this is only some high school project.
Correct.
We are doing this in college.
We're doing this for impact.
Yeah.
We're gonna continue this for as long as we can.
I don't care if I go to UCLA and he goes to MIT. I would take the flight over just to do this podcast, man. 'Cause,
Exactly.
this
is important to
Yeah,
us. This
yeah.
means a lot to us.
and it's not just something that we really want to, just talk about so that we can get into good colleges. Like this is something that we're really like
Passionate
about and like we
this
care
is-
about.
Yeah.
We see it all the time in society, and like even something small like a flex block, like the engineering
Exactly.
flex block that I go to, no white people, just white people.
Exactly.
I'm the only Asian there.
Yeah.
So imagine if we use this tool as our outreach. Imagine how many more people we can get into STEM.
Exactly. Can get inspired by us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah. Is that all we gotta say?
I think that's all we gotta say.
All right. Signing off.
Signing off.
3,
2,
1.
1.